The story I'm about to share deals with an experience involving my mum, my dad, and a half-bodied winged demon. Back in 1980, in a remote part of Silverton, my mom and dad, whom we'll refer to as Rudy and Nora, lived peacefully in their small home. At that time, they had no neighbors close by, so their surroundings were quiet. Their house was also surrounded by towering trees. They chose to live there because it was near their fields of sweet potatoes and bananas. They lived well enough, but they felt incomplete because they had no children. They tried many times to have a child, but it took a long while before they were finally blessed with a baby. Over the following days, Mum started experiencing constant body aches. She also felt nauseated and unusually sleepy. Not knowing the cause of her illness, they immediately went to a folk healer to get her checked. The couple was overjoyed to learn that Mum was pregnant. I was the baby in her womb at that time. "Don't get too happy," the older folk healer warned in a serious tone, alarming both Mum and Dad. "Why not? What do you mean? Is there something bad that's going to happen to my wife?" Dad asked the healer in quick succession. "It's not easy having a pregnant wife, especially here in our area, Rudy," said the folk healer, making the couple more uneasy. They had no idea what the healer was implying. "Please just tell us clearly." "What do you mean?" Mum asked, unable to sit still because of the odd things the folk healer was saying. "A pregnant woman is very appealing to dark creatures and shape-shifting fiends, especially orange half-bodied demon. They are attracted to the scent of the baby in your womb," the folk healer explained, making the couple's hair stand on end. "If that's the case, what should we do to prevent anything bad from happening?" Dad followed up. "Whenever Nora's stomach hurts, it means one of those fiends is circling around your house, Rudy. If that happens, you'll need to burn dried coconut husks around your home, especially by the windows and doors," the folk healer advised, and Dad readily agreed. They engraved every word of the folk healer into their minds. The couple went home, happy yet tinged with fear. From the moment Mom became pregnant, strange events began occurring. Almost every night they felt creatures lurking around their house, so Mom never stayed outside after dark. By 5 p.m., the windows and doors would already be locked. "Rudy, I'm scared our child might be taken," Mum said fearfully. "Stop thinking about those things. You might lose the baby if you keep worrying. Calm yourself so the baby won't be affected," Dad suggested, while comforting her. While the two of them were talking, they suddenly heard rustling among the banana plants. Mom's stomach started hurting at that exact moment. She wanted to scream from the pain, but Dad held her back to keep her from crying out. Despite the fear, Dad forced himself to go outside, grabbing a box of matches and a coconut husk. He burned it around the house to ward off the evil entity that wanted to get close to Mom. When he was done, he locked the door and blocked it with a large table to be sure they were safe inside. Dad calmed Mom and told her to act like nothing had happened. After a while, the two dozed off, but in the middle of the night, they heard a thump on the roof. Something heavy landed above them. Then came a growl, like some ravenous monster. Mom woke up first and noticed her stomach was in pain. She heard a large creature on the roof, seemingly scraping at the tin sheets. She tried to wake Dad, but he was sleeping so deeply that she resorted to slapping him hard. When Dad awoke, he heard the horrifying screech of metal, as if claws were raking across the roof. The couple feared for their lives because the roofing was just held down by big pieces of wood. The sheets weren't nailed, they were only secured by heavy planks so they wouldn't blow away in the wind. When they saw that the creature had managed to slip its long, sharp nails into the roof, Dad quickly grabbed his machete from inside the house. He found it tough to strike the fiend's claws from below, so he decided to get salt and garlic. He tossed them onto the spot on the roof where its hand had come through. The fiend screeched as though burned by the salt and garlic. Dad's bravery kicked in. He gathered his courage and rushed out, wielding the machete and cursing the shape-shifting demon. Outside, he finally saw that the monster perched on their roof was actually a winged, half-bodied demon. It flew away from their house. "Come back here! I'll kill you, you devil!" Dad shouted. Seeing it vanish into the distance, he went back inside and hugged his crying wife. The next morning, Dad immediately fixed the roof. He cut down many banana stalks from his field, placed them on the rooftop, and tied them securely so it couldn't be torn open if the demon returned. He spent the entire day reinforcing their home, peppered salt on the roof and around their house, and hung garlic by the windows and doors. Night fell once again, and unfortunately, a heavy rainstorm came. The downpour washed away all the salt Dad had scattered on the roof and around the house. He smacked his forehead and scratched his head, realizing their protective salt barrier was gone. Both Mom and Dad became nervous, aware that the demon could come any time, especially now that the rain had stopped. To ensure he'd have a weapon if the demon attacked, Dad sharpened his machete throughout the night. He kept grinding it until it became razor sharp. "All right, Nora, get some sleep. I'll stand guard," Dad told Mom. Exhausted, Mom dozed off, while Dad remained wide awake, listening to any sound in the surroundings. Soon enough, he heard powerful flapping in the distance, announcing the approach of some dark creature. As the minutes ticked by, the flapping grew fainter, meaning it was getting closer to their house. Dad stayed alert, readying himself for the demon's arrival. He vowed that this creature wouldn't succeed tonight. The beating of its wings grew weaker until, thump, it landed on the roof. Mom slept on, unaware. Dad was so used to the demon's repeated visits that fear no longer fazed him. He stayed inside, confident that the new ties on their roof would thwart the demon from prying the sheets open. But then he heard the creature fly off toward the window. Panicking, Dad woke Mom because the window latch was weaker than the door. Dad stood in front of the window, machete raised, waiting for the demon to try and break in. Mom hid to one side so she wouldn't be grabbed the moment it got in. Moments later, as expected, the creature used all its strength to shatter the window. It managed to enter, and Dad swung the machete fiercely, though the demon dodged. Dad did wound one of its wings, causing it to howl in pain. As it attempted to fly away, Dad got another slash on its back. Now enraged, the demon backed away out of the window and soared off into the night. "It definitely won't come back right away. I wounded its back," Dad said. He hugged Mom, who was sobbing in terror. It was lucky Dad was brave, otherwise the demon might have succeeded in taking the baby in Mom's womb. One morning, while Dad was busy fixing the damaged window and Mom was hanging clothes tawdry, an old woman approached. She was stooped with age and came so close that she managed to grab Mom's belly without warning. Mom screamed in shock and backed away. Dad, startled by her shriek, ran over with a hammer in hand, pointing it at the old woman. "Who are you? Why are you here?" Dad demanded. The old woman, dressed entirely in black, stared intently at Mom's stomach, then smiled and spoke. "I'm going to be your wife's midwife. I heard she needs someone to watch over her and give her checkups so the baby won't be in a breech position," the old woman said. Mom and Dad were puzzled by her words. They hadn't told anyone they needed a midwife, yet they felt relieved at the possibility of help. Until then, they hadn't found anyone to assist with Mom's delivery. For several months, the old woman stayed with them and was a great help during Mom's pregnancy. Whenever Nora's stomach hurt, the old woman was there to soothe her. She even stayed in their home to keep an eye on Nora's growing belly. Though Rudy and Nora didn't know where she had come from, they trusted her because she acted kindly. She cooked, did laundry, and made life easier. Thanks to her, the household chores became more manageable. The old woman was also fond of talking to the baby in Nora's womb, as if she were a real grandmother, extremely attentive. She advised them on the best foods to cook for Mom. Healthy, nutritious meals, perfect for a pregnant woman. She also knew exactly which foods were good for producing milk. Ever since the old woman showed up, the half-bodied demon no longer visited. They began seeing her as a protective charm, someone the demon was afraid of. However, Dad soon noticed something odd. The old woman never mentioned her own name or where she came from. They just called her Grandma, since that's all they knew to call her. Then came the fateful day Dad accidentally saw the old woman changing clothes. He noticed a wound on her back. Right away, he was reminded of the night he had cut the demon's back. He felt a surge of suspicion. Quickly, he stepped back out of the house, not letting the old woman realize he'd seen the scar on her back. Dad could not stop, thinking that the kind stranger might actually be Thewinged Fiend. He told Mom his suspicion, but at first she didn't believe him. However, over time, she began noticing changes in the old woman's behavior. The further along Nora's pregnancy got, the more the old woman acted agitated, as if she was losing her mind. She constantly stared at Nora's stomach and even drooled sometimes. So in the nights that followed, they kept a close watch on her. Their suspicions grew stronger after a certain night with the old woman. As Nora slept deeply, she felt a hand touching her belly. Initially, she thought it was just Rudy, but then the touch turned into a claw-like jab, digging into her skin. Startled, Nora opened her eyes, only to see the old woman seemingly about to slice her stomach open. "Grandma, what are you doing?" Nora asked, clearly shocking the old woman, who tried to cover it up. "I was just rubbing oil on your belly to keep it from getting cold," she replied. Dad approached them, confused. He drew his machete and aimed it at the old woman. "Admit it, are you the half-bodied demon that's been visiting us?" Dad confronted her. The old woman locked eyes with him, her gaze so intense it seemed full of rage. "What nonsense about a demon are you talking about, son? I'm human, just a normal person," she insisted, raising her hands as if to show she wouldn't fight. "If you're not the fiend, then how do you explain that wound on your back?" Dad pressed. "Oh, that. I hurt myself gathering firewood. A pointed stick jabbed me, tearing through the sack I was carrying," she lied. Dad wasn't convinced, but Mom pitied her and asked Dad to let it go. That night, though, they were jolted awake by the sound of the half-bodied demon landing on the roof. The old woman wasn't aware inside the house. That was when Rudy and Nora became certain the old woman was indeed the fiend, or at least connected to it. From the rooftop, a long tongue slid down toward them. Dad waited for his chance, then cut off the demon's tongue. The creature screeched and raged above them, tearing at the metal roof again, but it soon flew off. Everything went quiet, and the couple breathed a sigh of relief, figuring it couldn't come back immediately, not with its tongue severed. They slept soundly, knowing that a particular demon had been driven away. By morning, the old woman was back in the house cooking breakfast, strangely silent. She no longer answered any questions from Rudy or Nora. The couple exchanged worried looks, as though both sensed they were in danger. The old woman seemed infuriated, glaring at them, her hands occasionally shaking as if longing to attack. She simply shook her head and began sweating profusely. An entire day passed without hearing a single word from her. Then at midnight, Dad noticed the old woman get up and step outside. She headed toward the banana grove and rubbed oil on her body. Moments later, Dad saw how the upper half of her body separated at the waist. Panicking, he ran back into the house to alert Nora. He grabbed fresh salt and garlic, rushed back out, and found the old woman's lower torso left behind among the banana plants. Dad poured salt, and spread garlic on the lower body. When he got back inside, he saw the demon's long tongue already attempting to reach Nora, who was screaming in terror. Paralyzed by fear, she couldn't even run, so Dad quickly sliced off that monstrous tongue again. The demon wailed and became even more aggressive, ripping open part of the roof. Rudy and Nora were forced to flee the house. Theron into the sweet potato field, while the demon gave chase. "Stay away from us, you devil!" Dad shouted, swinging the machete at the fiend each time it lunged. Nora followed right behind him, clutching her pregnant belly. Dad continued slashing whenever the demon swooped in close. He aimed for its wings, shredding them so it struggled to stay airborne. Eventually, it weakened from blood loss, unable to reattach to the lower body that had been doused with salt and garlic. Dawn arrived, and with the sun's light, the demon shriveled and turned toshes that scattered on the wind. Mom and Dad thanked God for surviving that terrifying ordeal. And of course, I, their child, am eternally grateful they didn't let the fiend take me from Mom's womb. As I write this story, tears fill my eyes at the memory of my mother. I forgot to mention earlier that she passed away a few years ago, so now it's only Dad and me living here in Silverton. Nowadays, things have changed a lot. We have many neighbors, and the area is full of people. Still, that horrifying event my parents endured during Mom's pregnancy remains an unforgettable chapter in our lives, one I'll carry with me as long as I live. Please just call me Pearl, not my real name. I simply want to share with you my horrifying experience with a ghoul when I returned to my husband's rural hometown in Millfield, Oregon. I was 5 months pregnant back then when we decided to visit my husband's hometown. My husband, let's just call him Sam, lost his job at the factory he was working in due to downsizing, and I also had to stop working as a cashier at a local grocery store. We used our small savings to pay for our trip. It wasn't an easy journey since we had to ride a long-distance bus called a cross-state Greyhound. It was exhausting, especially because I was pregnant. Sam took care of me the whole time due to my delicate condition. Finally, after a long trip, we arrived at the terminal. According to my husband, we were just one ride away from his little town once we hopped on another bus. As soon as we boarded the long bus, I felt like taking a nap to rest from all the fatigue. I could feel my baby kicking inside my womb, so I gently rubbed my belly and leaned on my husband's shoulder. I sensed the bus begin to move, when suddenly someone shouted from outside. I straightened up as the bus came to a gradual stop. "Driver, please wait," said an old woman from outside, who quickly climbed aboard, looking for a seat. At that moment, there was room for 2 more passengers in the row, right in front of me, so she took the seat there, near where I was sitting. I glanced at her eyes, and I felt as though I was in a staring contest, because her gaze was sharp. I couldn't understand what I was feeling then. My baby kept squirming. I was hot yet oddly chilled. "Are you okay, Pearl?" Sam asked, noticing I was breaking out in a cold sweat. He gently patted my hair and put his arm around me, letting me rest against his shoulder. Secretly, I looked at the old woman in front of me. I saw thick drool dripping from her mouth, which she wiped away with her palms. She stared intently at my swollen belly, swallowing her saliva afterward while rubbing her throat. "Sam," I whispered, "is it still a long ride?" I was starting to feel goosebumps from the old woman. "1 more hour, Pearl. Maybe you should take a nap. I'll wake you up when we're almost there," he replied, eyes closed. I simply nodded, calming my mind and my nerves, despite feeling uneasy about the old woman in front of me. I closed my eyes to doze off, trying to ignore the odd behavior of that old lady. Suddenly, I moaned when I sensed something like a thread creeping from my foot, up my legs. It felt sticky, as if it wanted to pierce my pregnant belly. I wanted to remove that strange thread, but I couldn't move my body. I wanted to scream, yet I couldn't get any sound out of my throat, as if something was controlling me. I tried to move my fingers but failed. My arms felt paralyzed, while the sticky thread poked my belly. I finally snapped out of it when the bus lurched violently. Turns out we were on a rough, rocky road, causing it to shake. Because of that bumpy stretch, I regained control of my limbs, though I was left panting and weak. My mind cleared, and I glimpsed that same thread withdrawing from where it had been pressed against my belly, sliding back toward the old woman's mouth. She quickly wiped away her saliva. I shook my head, thinking it must have been a hallucination from all the exhaustion, but I still felt a strange pang near my belly button. I touched it, finding my belly somewhat damp. Looking again at the old woman, I saw her slightly bloodshot eyes and a sly grin. I tapped Sam on the shoulder because he had dozed off and hadn't even noticed the bus, rocking on the rough terrain. When he woke, I clung to his arm, my hands trembling. He sensed that I was shaking and asked if I was really all right. "Pearl, are you sure you're okay? You look pale," Sam said. "I'm fine, probably just exhaustion," I replied, trying to reassure him. He told me we were nearly at his little town. I felt a huge relief to hear that because I couldn't stand sitting there near the old woman anymore. Sam signaled for the bus to stop at a waiting shed, and we both got off, with him helping me step down carefully. The old woman also got off right after us, but we were going opposite ways. After a few minutes of walking, we finally reached my husband's family home. His parents and siblings welcomed us warmly. It was the first time they'd seen me in person, especially since I was carrying what would be their first grandchild. "Go on and settle into your room, Sam and Pearl. You two must be tired from your long trip," said Sam's mother kindly. "Thank you, ma'am. I'm not feeling well after such an exhausting trip," I responded. Sam guided me to the room we'd be staying in, and I took a seat on the simple bed. Their lifestyle was humble but happy, and I appreciated what they had. "Sam, thank you for bringing me to your hometown," I told him, smiling. He hugged me, thanking me in return. He then excused himself, saying he'd step outside for some fresh air. I nodded and slowly moved to change out of my clothes. As I was taking off my shirt, I felt a sudden wave of dread. There was a red mark etched across my belly. I also realized my baby wasn't moving anymore. I cried out for Sam. "Pearl, what's wrong?" he asked, startled, rushing in, followed by his parents and siblings who heard me shout. "Sam, look," I said, pointing to the red mark on my stomach. "I think the baby's not moving." Sam moved closer, placing his hand over my belly, telling me to stay calm. As he comforted me, his mother gently touched my abdomen as well. She told Sam's sibling to retrieve some oil from their little altar, which they quickly did. Once Sam's mum got the oil, she immediately rubbed it over my stomach. I could feel its warmth spreading into my womb, and to my relief, I started to feel better. Soon the baby was moving again inside me. Sam's mother asked me where I'd gotten that red mark on my stomach. I told her about the old woman who'd boarded the bus with us, describing the weird thread-like thing that seemed to come from her mouth, trying to poke my belly. At first I thought it was just a hallucination, but the red mark was proof it really happened. Sam's mother frowned, meeting my gaze in deep concern. She said she wasn't surprised by my story. Many outsiders who had visited their little town had moved away under strange circumstances. I couldn't understand what she meant or was implying until she explained more and warned me to be careful around any unfamiliar people. "Now that you're living here in our small town, Pearl, please be cautious. According to the old folks, if you've already been marked like that, they won't stop until they get the baby you're carrying," she said. Her words alarmed me. I realized she was referring to that red mark as the mark of a ghoul. "If possible, don't leave the house, Pearl, or talk to strangers, especially since you're new here. I'll give you some protective oil, because that ghoul who marked you won't stop," Sam's mum said again. A ghoul? Is that real? I asked, trembling. Yes, Pearl, ghouls are real. They've existed for ages, since the days our country was still new. Many people claim these creatures are among us, so we all have to be vigilant, especially you, Pearl, since you're pregnant and apparently marked by one. Ina, don't scare Pearl, Sam interjected, but Sam's sibling chimed in about another pregnant woman who allegedly became a victim in a nearby neighborhood, found with her belly torn open and no baby inside. My hair stood on end hearing that. I went pale, and Sam, noticing my distress, told his sibling to quit repeating rumors, but Sam's sibling insisted people had witnessed it. Sam scolded his brother again, threatening to cuff him on the head if he went on. Sam didn't want me to worry further because my pregnancy was delicate. All right, dear, you rest up for now. We'll call you for dinner soon, Sam's mum said kindly, ending the tense conversation. I nodded, and Sam accompanied me back to our room. That night, after dinner, we gathered in the living room, Sam's parents, his sibling, and me, exchanging stories and bonding for a while. Sam himself was outside on the porch, smoking. Just as we were all chatting happily, Sam shouted from the porch, startled by a large bird that swooped over the roof. Sam rushed back inside and locked the door, clearly shaken. What happened, Sam? Why'd you lock the door so suddenly? His mother asked, surprised. Mum, a giant bird flew over the roof, and it smelled awful, he explained. Sam's dad smirked slightly, amused at his son's reaction. We all exchanged worried glances when suddenly something landed on the tin roof. Each step of that thing caused a creaking sound that warped the metal sheets. We all went quiet. I clung tightly to Sam's arm because my body felt like it was on fire. My baby was moving like crazy. Sam's father hurried to close the windows, and Sam's mother frowned upon noticing the protective oil in its small bottle starting to bubble. Then we heard a hissing, panting noise close by, as if the thing was nearby, also listening. Sam's mom shouted at the creature on the roof, angrily scolding it like it was an unwelcome pest. Hey, no ghouls allowed here. We're not afraid of you, so go away if you don't want to end up dead, she yelled fearlessly. After that, we heard powerful wing beats fluttering away from the house. Sam's mom told me it seemed to have left. Looks like the ghoul came early this evening, Pearl, determined to get at the baby you're carrying, she told me. As soon as it was gone, I released my grip on Sam's arm, and his younger sibling unclung from their father, equally frightened. All right, let's secure the doors and windows. Better safe than sorry. Who knows if our visitor will be back, Sam's mother said, instructing her husband and kids. She told Sam to take me back to our room. Once we'd bolted the doors and windows, they turned off the main light in the living room, leaving only the porch light on, so they could see if anything suspicious lurked outside. Sam's mom handed me a small bottle of oil, then gave Sam a dried stingray tail, which she called a whip, for protection. I thanked her, and she told Sam to keep a close watch on me. Inside our room, Sam set the stingray tail on a small table while I clutched the oil bottle. Sam helped me get our bedding ready, telling me to sleep early and not to dwell on that monstrous creature. He promised to stand guard, but soon enough, he was fast asleep, snoring, while I remained wide awake. Not being accustomed to sleeping early, I decided to read a book, one of my favorite ways to unwind before bed. Some time passed, and I heard Sam's snoring grow louder, indicating deep sleep. Suddenly, I heard scratching at the window, like claws trying to force their way inside. Our family members were likely asleep by then, so they didn't hear it. The scratching was soft, so I assumed it might be a mouse scuttling across the old wooden window. But the protective oil in the bottle started bubbling again, and my baby was kicking fiercely. Next, I saw a sharp nail puncture a small hole in the thin wooden window. Shocked by what I saw, I tried to wake Sam, But as soon as that hole was made, the scratching vanished. However, the oil was still bubbling slightly, and my baby was still restless in my womb. Even though I was terrified, I forced myself not to panic. I knew I had to stay strong because my child's life was on the line. Moments later, I noticed a slender thread-like thing slithering through the hole in the wood, creeping toward me. It was that same thread that had marked my belly. Quickly, I reached for the dried stingray tail, determined to protect myself. Though it was a stretch to grab it, I managed, then repeatedly lashed at the ghoul's tongue, screaming curses. "You vile ghoul! We'll die together before you get the baby in my womb!" I yelled, striking blow after blow. Because of my frantic whipping, the ghoul quickly pulled that wire-like tongue back out the hole. Even then, I couldn't help crying as I shouted. My screams woke Sam, who leapt up, helping me sit on the edge of the bed. His parents and sibling rushed in, alarmed by my yelling. "What happened, Pearl?" Sam asked, worried once he had me seated. "Pearl, what's going on?" Sam's mother chimed in. Still in tears, I recounted how the ghoul tried to attack me again. I pointed at the droplets of blood on the floor, leading to the hole in the window, presumably the ghoul's blood from its injured tongue. "Looks like you wounded its tongue just in time," Sam's mum said. "That might teach it a lesson never to return here." Meanwhile, Sam's dad started scolding him for failing to notice or protect me. "Those ghouls really are a menace, but don't let your guard down," Sam's mother went on. "I suspect this will only make it more aggressive now that it's been wounded." Sam took a deep breath and told his mom he'd seek protection from an old folk healer in the next town. "All right, son. For now, let's all get some rest. I doubt it'll come back tonight. It's likely recovering from its injuries," Sam's mum replied. The next day, Sam visited that folk healer who lived in the neighboring town and brought them back to our place to check on me and give us some form of protection. "I can still smell it here from when it attacked you last night," said the healer. "You must be extra careful. This ghoul is a vicious one, and it craves human flesh, especially your unborn child." After examining me, the folk healer gave me a necklace containing a small bullet casing, packed with powdered herbs and other concoctions that supposedly repel ghouls. They instructed me never to remove it, no matter what. They also told me to tape some crushed garlic inside a small plastic jar mixed with plenty of lemon juice, as it's an effective ghoul deterrent. A week passed with no disturbances, so I finally felt comfortable leaving the house. Sam introduced me to more of his relatives. His town was beautiful. Besides the many houses, there were wide fields, fish ponds, and at the far edge, a clear, tranquil beach. One afternoon, Sam's sibling invited me along to pick some ripe berries near that coastline, where the bushes were laden with fruit. Sam's mum and Sam himself agreed, since I had my protective necklace and a jar with crushed garlic and lemon juice in my pocket. While Sam's sibling gathered berries, I noticed an old man standing off to the side, staring at me intensely, as if I'd offended him. Instinctively, I clutched my necklace, and he quickly looked away, turning to walk into the nearby woods. I watched him go, only to see a second figure, an old woman whom I recognized immediately as the same one who had joined us on the bus and gave me that red mark. The moment I saw her face, I told Sam's sibling we should head home. He had nearly filled his bag with berries by that point anyway. On the way back, we spotted a vendor grilling corn, so we paused to buy some. While Sam's sibling was selecting corn, I saw that old man again, standing across the road, glaring at me. I let him stare. After all, I wasn't alone, and there were other people buying grilled corn too. Suddenly, I felt a severe thirst, as if something was pulling me toward where the old man stood. Sam's sibling was busy picking the best corn and didn't notice I was drifting away. It felt like I was hypnotized. I ended up following the old man down the path to the beach, where there was a wooded area beyond the shoreline. Without understanding why, I followed him deep into the woods. Sam's sibling panicked when he realized I'd vanished and ran straight home to tell everyone. Sam was enraged upon hearing I'd disappeared, especially because nightfall was approaching. Soon a neighbor told Sam she had seen me walking toward the beach in the company of an old man. Furious and terrified, Sam followed that lead, running toward the shoreline and then into the woods, calling my name. He carried the stingray tail whip, pounding a metal can with a rock to create noise. Sam shouted threats aimed at the ghoul. "Come out, you ghoul! If anything happens to my wife, I'll kill you!" Meanwhile, that old man had led me to the darkest part of the forest, and that was where I snapped out of my trance. I noticed the man's thick saliva dripping toward my stomach. My eyes grew wide. A monstrous, hideous creature was right in front of me. Wild hair, red eyes, a ghoulish grin. Clearly, it had hypnotized me while I was weak. Your baby smells so delicious," the ghoul said, smacking its lips as it prepared to pierce my abdomen with razor-sharp claws. "Please let us go! Don't kill us!" I screamed, but the ghoul hissed that my shouting wouldn't do any good. "Your husband will never make it in time. Tonight you two will be my dinner," it growled, but I suddenly remembered the plastic jar of crushed garlic and lemon juice. I grabbed it and flung the contents right in the ghoul's face. It wailed as if I'd thrown acid, shrieking in agony as its skin started to sizzle and peel. Though it was in pain, it still lunged at me. Luckily, Sam burst onto the scene, whipping it viciously with the stingray tail. Each lash left a burning mark until finally the ghoul collapsed, too wounded to fight. We heard the flapping of giant wings overhead. Another ghoul, presumably rushing in to snatch me, but it crashed hard to the ground, struck by a spear. It turned out Sam's dad, Sam's mum, and some of their relatives had arrived just in time. They wasted no opportunity, finishing off the second ghoul. Both creatures were killed with a spear to the heart, their bodies later burned. Days and months went by with no other ghouls lurking around me. Eventually, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. That's the end of my story. Thanks for watching. This was Mr. Horror. See you later.